When we think of spiders, we almost always think of fear, venom, and silent webs. But the group goes far beyond that. Some species reach impressive sizes, others have venom of low medical importance to humans, and all carry an ancient, efficient, and extraordinarily diverse evolutionary history. To truly understand spiders, we need to start long before human fear, and far beyond the visible web. The Goliath bird-eater is among the largest spiders on the planet, and its appearance alone is enough to fuel legends. But size does not automatically mean greater danger to people. In many cases, the visual impressiveness of these giants speaks more about defense, intimidation, and adaptation than about real risk to humans. What seems monstrous to us is merely a highly refined bodily solution in nature. The history of spiders begins long before any mammal, long before birds, and immensely before us. Their ancestors traversed mass extinctions, extreme climate changes, and shifting continents, slowly refining a lightweight, sensorily sophisticated, and biologically economical body. Their endurance was not born from brute strength, but from efficiency. They survived because they learned to spend little, perceive a lot, and adapt almost without rest. Some lineages still preserve very ancient traits. Mesothelies, such as those of the genus Lephistius, are often seen as living relics because they maintain rare primitive characteristics. Observing them is almost like looking at a remote fragment of the arachnid past, still hidden beneath the soil of the present. They remind us that the diversity of spiders is not only geographical or visual, but also deeply temporal and evolutionary. The body of a spider seems simple, but it is far from that. The cephalothorax houses the eyes, brain, and motor control. The abdomen contains vital organs, glands, and the silk-producing spinnerets. In the front, chelicerae and pedipalps complete a compact system where almost everything has multiple functions. Nothing there exists by chance. Each segment has been preserved because it helped, generation after generation, to transform apparent fragility into extraordinary efficiency. The movements of the legs depend not only on musculature, as occurs in vertebrates. In part, they involve variations in internal pressure, a remarkable biological hydraulic solution. This helps explain why so many spiders appear at once abrupt, precise, strange, and incredibly well adapted to the smallest detail of the terrain. When they run, climb, or stop suddenly, we see not just movement. We see biomechanics refined by time in its purest state. A large part of a spider's world does not come just through its eyes. It comes through its entire body. The sensory hairs detect pressure, vibration, air displacement, and tiny disturbances. On a human scale, this seems trivial, but for these predators, it means living surrounded by constant signals that we do not even notice. Even before seeing, the spider already feels. And in many cases, feeling first is exactly what ensures its survival. Among all spiders, jumping spiders seem to belong to another visual universe. Phidippus regius, for example, displays large front eyes and impressive spatial awareness. In it, vision takes on true prominence, transforming contrast, depth, and movement into extremely refined decision-making tools that are visually captivating. It is a spider that even casual observers can notice something rare, a small predator that seems to look back with intent. This ocular system does not exist just to appear expressive. It allows for combining detailed focus with peripheral vigilance. While one part tracks the main target, another continues to read what happens around. It is a rare sensory architecture among spiders and one of the keys to their success as visual hunters. In the universe of leaves, where millimeters define life or error, seeing well means much more than just seeing. The great invention of spiders is silk. It is born liquid inside the body and, in moments, transforms into a solid, strong, and flexible thread. This material can serve as a bridge, shelter, safety line, protection for eggs, or trap. Few biological solutions offer such versatility with so little matter. It's as if each spider carries in its own abdomen a miniaturized factory of adaptive engineering. In orb-weaving spiders, such as Argiope, the architecture becomes a spectacle. The circular web appears delicate, but it functions as a diagram of enormous efficiency. Each ray, each spiral, and each point of tension responds to a precise functional logic. Beauty is born directly from utility and not from any decorative impulse. What seems like art to our eyes is, for the spider, applied physics with absolute discipline. Some species, such as those of the genus Trichonephila, produce large webs of golden sheen that look unreal at dawn. These threads capture light, prey, and human attention all at once. They are an impressive reminder that spider engineering can also be visually stunning without losing functional precision. In many cases, the more beautiful the result is for us, the more efficient it is for the animal's ecological logic. Not all spiders build the classic round web. There are sheets, funnels, irregular nets, and minimal structures that are almost invisible. Each shape corresponds to a type of habitat, a type of prey, and a specific logic of capture. In the world of spiders, architecture is never a fixed standard. It is pure adaptation. The form changes because the environment changes, and because survival does not reward rigidity. It rewards precise responses to the context. Tarantulas like Brachypelma hamori or Grammostola pulchripes help to dismantle another common myth. Despite their intense appearance, many of these species have venom of low medical importance to humans and prefer to avoid direct confrontation. Their visual impact is enormous, but their risk is often much lower than popular imagination suggests. Sometimes, nature is more frightening for the signals it emits than for the actual harm it intends to cause. Instead of investing immediately, many tarantulas prefer warning signs. Body posture, retreat, or urticating hairs can be enough to discourage predators. This shows something essential. Not every spider uses venom as a first response. Many opt for solutions that save risk, energy, and unnecessary exposure. Efficiency in this group is not always about attacking. Often, it is about avoiding confrontation before it begins. At the opposite extreme of giants, common garden species remind us that most spiders live discreetly, far from any serious medical relevance to humans. Araneus diadematus, for example, is much more important for the local balance of insects than for any exaggerated human narrative of terror. Its true power lies not in threatening, but in working quietly as part of the ecological routine of the environment. Other species reveal that evolutionary success does not depend on size. Misumena vadia, the flower crab spider, turns camouflage into an absolute advantage. It almost disappears on petals and buds, proving that the group has triumphed over time not through brute force, but through extremely diverse and well-adapted solutions to the environment. The less a predator needs to appear, the less energy it needs to waste to succeed. Among the largest by span is Heteropoda maxima, a long-legged hunting spider that seems to defy the very geometry of the body. Still, appearance and danger do not always go hand in hand. In spiders, size, speed, defense, and toxicity do not follow a simple rule that applies to all species. The group is too complex to fit into an easy formula of fear. Hairy giants, front-looking jumpers, orb-weaving weavers, flower-camouflaged hunters, and runners with immense legs. The diversity of the group is so great that any attempt to summarize spiders into a single image fails immediately. What unites them is biological efficiency, not a unique appearance. Each species seems to respond to a different question posed by the environment over millions of years. This diversity also explains its ecological strength. As they occupy many distinct niches, spiders distribute predatory pressure across soil, shrubs, flowers, trunks, walls, and canopies. Instead of relying on a single strategy, the group spreads its influence across almost the entire small world of insects. Where there is abundant microlife, there is a good chance that a spider is already regulating excesses. Where there is an abundance of small arthropods, there is almost always a spider converting excess into balance. They help contain populations, redistribute energy, and maintain less unstable systems. They are discrete predators, but on a global scale, they function as one of the great silent networks of life regulation. The planet seems calmer, in part, because they work without drawing attention. Spiders are not just hunters. They are also food. This places them at the center of multiple ecological connections. They capture energy from smaller prey and then return that energy to other predators. Understanding spiders is understanding link, flow, and balance, not just venom, fear, or webs. They connect different scales of life without ever seeming grand at first glance. Perhaps the best way to summarize this group is to observe a web at dawn. What appears fragile sustains information, traps, architecture, and evolutionary persistence. The thread vibrates, the spider interprets, the environment responds. Everything there is economy, precision, and adaptation accumulated over millions of years. No extravagance, just efficiency transformed into form, function, and permanence. Impressive giants, living relics, species of low medical importance to humans, and extraordinary silk engineers. They are ancient, diverse, sensory, and deeply important for the functioning of the living world. Looking closely at them is, in part, looking at nature's own evolutionary intelligence. Behind every web, every multiple eye, and every body strange to our standards, there exists one of the most efficient lineages on Earth. The more we observe spiders, the less they seem like monsters, and the more they appear as brilliant biological solutions. They are ancient, discreet, effective, and far greater in importance than their physical scale would suggest. In the world of spiders, killing almost never means running straight toward prey. Before the attack, there is reading, there is waiting, there is calculation. Each species transforms the environment into an extension of its own body. Soil, petal, web, water, and darkness cease to be mere scenery. They become instruments of capture, refined over millions of years. Among the specialists of subterranean waiting, trapdoor spiders represent an extreme form of patience. Umidia does not need to chase. She digs, lines the burrow with silk, and camouflages the entrance with absurd precision. For the prey, there is no visible threat. For the spider, the ground has already been converted into a functional trap. Inside, the world comes in the form of vibration. The spider does not rely on a wide view. It is enough to feel weight, direction, and proximity conveyed by the ground and the lid itself. The exterior is read as highly informative mechanical noise. The trapdoor is not just a shelter, it is a sensor, shield, and attack platform in a single architectural body. When the exact moment arrives, all the slowness disappears. The energy saved over hours is released in a single gesture. The lid opens, the body bursts out, the prey vanishes, and the ground appears intact again. Few strategies summarize the logic of spiders so well. Maximum effect, minimum waste. In some lineages of trapdoor spiders, specialization goes even further. Cyclocosmia, for example, has a rigidly modified posterior abdomen that helps seal the entrance of the burrow when it retreats. It's as if the body itself completes the defensive architecture. Here, biology and construction have long ceased to be separable. If the trapdoor represents the hunt for underground invisibility, Phidippus regius represents the predator that calculates at a glance. Its front eyes completely change the dynamics of the group. In it, the hunt seems less like pure reflex and more like a sequence of choices. Distance, angle, texture, and opportunity are assessed before any jump occurs. A jumper does not move as someone who improvises. She advances, interrupts, measures, corrects, waits, and repositions her body until the entire scenario conspires in her favor. This creates the disconcerting impression that we are faced with an animal that reasons on a millimeter scale, where a minimal mistake can mean a fall, escape, or hunger. Before the leap, many jumpers anchor a safety line. It's an extraordinary detail because it shows how boldness and caution coexist in the same gesture. The jump seems risky, but it is already born with built-in redundancy. If it fails, the jumper does not fall into chaos. They will retreat, recalculate, and try again at a reduced cost. When it finally jumps, the small body seems to ignore its own scale. The distance that seemed too great disappears in a fraction of a second. The attack impresses not only with its speed, but with its inevitability. It seems determined before it happens. because the real hunt was fought in the moments of reading that preceded the final movement. Among spiders, few hunters are as unsettling as Portia. She not only hunts insects, she hunts other spiders, often within the victim's own web. To do this, she needs to master a type of almost surgical deception. It's not enough to just enter. She must manipulate signals so as not to be read as a threat too soon. Portia uses false vibrations as a language of invasion. She tests patterns, observes responses, retreats, adjusts, and insists again. She literally interrogates the victim's web. She is a predator hunting for interpretation, and that makes her extraordinary. Here, the ambush does not arise from complete silence, but from the carefully manufactured noise to deceive. Your greatest weapon may not be the leap, but the cognitive patience of the body. It does not rush to solve the problem. It gradually builds the opportunity, as if it needs to convince the prey to accept its own proximity. In Portia, the predatory intelligence of the spiders reaches a level that continues to surprise even specialists. In contrast to the predator that waits motionless, the wolf spider transforms the ground into a territory of constant scanning. Hogna patrols leaves, crevices, and roots like a mobile hunter, always ready to detect the slightest trace of life. Its hunt relies less on fixed traps and more on the ability to interpret movement in transit. This type of hunting requires a different kind of sensitivity. The wolf spider cannot waste energy on useless runs. It needs to know when it's worth investing. That's why it alternates between movement and pause, impulse and reading. Every texture of the ground, every vibration, and every short shadow can mean a chance or an expensive mistake. Its attack is brief because efficiency lies precisely in that. Over-pursuing exposés, tires, and can attract other predators. The wolf spider attacks when the geometry of the moment is already practically resolved. Thus, even a body without a fixed web can dominate the environment through instant reading, short strength, and impeccable economy. Misumenavatia proves that ambush can also wear beauty. Camouflaged among petals, it transforms the flower into a lethal device. There is no race, no evident web, no warning. There is only a predator that occupies the exact spot where the prey will naturally arrive. It is the art of invisibility applied to the promise of nectar. The moment of the attack has a brutal quality precisely because it occurs at the height of the victim's trust. The flower seems safe, the landing seems ordinary, and then the landscape closes in on the body of the prey. In just a few fractions of a second, the beauty of the scene ceases to be welcoming and begins to reveal its predatory layer. In these cases, camouflage is not an aesthetic detail. It is a central structure of the capture strategy. Color, position, and immobility work together until the body completely disappears in the prey's perception. The animal does not need to be fast all the time. It just needs to not exist visually until the moment it decides to reappear. Few spiders seem as strange as Dinopus. Instead of building a large, fixed web, it holds a small elastic net ready to be thrown. Its giant eyes, adapted for night, further enhance the feeling of an unlikely creature. In it, vision and silk merge into an almost theatrical predatory technique. What she holds is not just silk, it is a manually waiting trap. When the prey enters the ideal range, the net descends like a living extension of the legs. The scene resembles a mobile, portable web cast at the right moment. The hunt stops being a scene and becomes a precise gesture. The bolus spider took simplification even further. Instead of a whole web, it uses just a single line with a sticky drop at the end. But the true sophistication lies outside the silk. It manipulates environmental chemistry to attract male moths, exploiting the victim's own desire as the first step in the capture. The male believes he is following an advantageous reproductive signal. In reality, he is already being led astray. This spider does not win in a race or in strength. It wins by reorganizing the behavior of the prey before physical contact. Death here does not begin at the touch. It begins in the invisible manipulation of expectation. And there are also the spiders that have expanded their hunting to the water. Dolomites transforms the liquid surface into a sensory field. Minimal waves carry direction, intensity, and position of movement. What would be a boundary for other predators becomes a living membrane for her. Even the water can be read as an extension of the body. Solo, flower, branch, foreign web, night, and liquid surface. The variety of scenarios shows that spiders did not dominate hunting with a single formula. They dominated because they multiplied formulas. Each species occupies a specific ecological question and responds with a body, a rhythm, and a strategy of almost brutal precision. Beneath the earth, among petals, on the water, or in the invisible geometry of the night air, spiders show that hunting is much more than just attacking. It is about interpreting the environment better than the prey, converting context into a weapon, and transforming patience, silk, vision, and chemistry into a lethal, silent, and extraordinarily economical engineering. After architecture and ambush, we reach the point where the spider's body reveals its most feared face. The venom is not a dark ornament of nature. It is a refined evolutionary tool to protect, immobilize, conserve energy, and quickly resolve conflicts. In a small body, precise chemistry replaces unnecessary brute force. The venom of spiders did not evolve for humans. It evolved to deal with small, fast, and often dangerous prey on the scale of these predators. Insects armed with stingers, jaws, or wings required efficient chemical solutions. Thus, a molecular arsenal was born, shaped over millions of years of meticulous natural selection. This matters because it dismantles a persistent myth. Most spiders have little to no serious medical relevance to humans. Human fear often treats the group as a uniform threat, but the reality is much more specific. Very few species concentrate the most concerning cases and the venoms that actually require relevant medical attention. Among the most notable medical species in the Americas is Phoneutria nigriventer, the armed spider. Its name already suggests movement. Unlike many web-dependent spiders, it patrols the environment with a powerful body, quick spatial awareness, and a striking defensive response. Its venom has become famous because its ecological presence is dynamic and intense. The famous posture of the armadillo is not just a simple spectacle. It is a warning. Before direct confrontation, it signals danger and tries to discourage advancement. This reveals something essential. Even highly feared species prefer to avoid unnecessary expenditure. Attacking costs energy, risk, and exposure. Warning first is, in many cases, a more rational and biologically economical solution. Your venom is powerful, but the whole body participates in the threat. The armed spider combines active movement, environmental reading, defensive posture, and efficient chemistry. It is this combination that makes it so impressive. The real danger is not just in the toxin. It lies in the integration of movement, timing, decision-making, and the ability to respond quickly to its surroundings. For the prey, the poison reduces time, resistance, and unpredictability. Instead of prolonging a risky physical struggle, the spider converts chemistry into a decisive advantage. The goal is not cruelty, it is control. The sooner the target's body loses coordination, the lower the risk for the predator that needs to feed without getting hurt. On the other side of the planet, another lineage elevated the chemical reputation of the group. Atrax robustus, the Sydney funnel web spider. With a robust body, impressive fangs, and a habit of staying close to silk-lined shelters, it has become one of the central names when it comes to high medical risk spiders and immediate attention. In Atrax, anatomy and chemistry form an intimidating set. The chelicerae are strong, the fangs seem designed to pierce securely, and the venom has gained international notoriety. Still, the biological logic remains the same. Neutralize quickly, defend when necessary, and avoid waste. Even the most famous terror is still governed by efficiency, not excess. The importance of Atrax robustus has also driven research, management, and modern antivenoms. This shows that studying spiders is not just a matter of natural curiosity. In some cases, understanding their biology makes a direct difference between diffuse panic and an organized, precise, evidence-based medical response. Scientific knowledge in this context reduces fear and saves lives. If the spider and the funnel impress with their presence, the black widows impress with their iconography. Latrodectus has become a global symbol of venom. The dark body, The irregular web and the red on the abdomen have created an unforgettable visual signature. But behind the myth lies a reserved, economical, and extremely efficient predator in its own territory. Like the widows, the chemistry does not work alone. First comes the architecture of the web, designed to confuse, ensnare, and exhaust. Then comes the careful approach, the wrapping, and the neutralization. The poison enters as part of an organized sequence. The prey is defeated systematically, not just by a single isolated bite. This hunting style reveals an elegant and brutal logic. The silk reduces movement, the web restricts options, and the chemistry seals resistance. Nothing there is wasted. The Black Widow does not rely on excessive physical strength. She dominates through the integration of structure, distance, opportunity, and specific biochemistry adjusted to the vulnerability of the prey. There are species that evoke fear, not through their imposing presence, but through silence. Loxosceles, the violin spider, has become a symbol of discreet danger. Small, inconspicuous, and fond of hiding places, it rarely impresses with its size. Its impact lies precisely in going unnoticed until the encounter has already occurred. This partial invisibility feeds much of its fame. Instead of large open webs or striking warnings, Loxosceles relies on discretion. And that is exactly why it has become so well known in human environments. Fear grows where the eye fails to perceive the animal before contact, and the imagination fills in the rest. The venom of Loxosceles is studied carefully because it can cause complex local effects in certain cases. But the actual response varies greatly. The amount injected, the location, the organism's sensitivity, and the time of treatment influence the outcome. Biology is almost always more variable, less theatrical, and more specific than simplified terror usually admits. In the group of spiders from extreme environments, species like Sicarius reinforce another important lesson. Some of the most sophisticated chemicals in the group evolved in extremely discreet animals, almost invisible on the substrate. Again, appearance and risk do not follow a simple rule. Danger often hides in silence, camouflage, and the low probability of being noticed. Comparing these species reveals how much popular fear oversimplifies the group. Dangerous spiders do exist and deserve absolute respect. However, they represent a small fraction compared to the immense total diversity. Generalizing all of them as equivalents is biologically incorrect and ecologically unfair to the rest of the spiders, which will never play a similar role. In many spiders, the venomous bite is not the first act. First comes the restraint. The silk reduces movement, limits reaction, and transforms an unpredictable target into a controlled resource. Only then does the chemistry come in to finish the job. This order makes the capture safer, quicker, and less costly for those who need to feed without getting hurt. This sequence helps explain the group's success. Spiders do not rely on a single magic solution. They depend on integration. Silk, venom, posture, environmental reading, and patience make up a complete system, in which each step reduces risk, stabilizes the process, and enhances the efficiency of the next. Nothing in them works in isolation for long. After immobilization comes another fascinating stage: external digestion. Many spiders apply enzymes that begin to break down the tissues of the prey before complete ingestion. This reduces the need for heavy chewing structures and allows a small body to exploit food in an incredibly efficient, economical, and scale-consistent manner. This moment of waiting is part of chemical warfare. Not everything is resolved in a dramatic impact. The spider holds, poisons, wraps, waits, and only then feeds. Time, silk, and chemistry work together. The predator does not rush unnecessarily. It allows the very biology of the prey to collaborate, passively, with the consummation of the process. Just for its precision, many spider toxins are of great interest to science. Researchers study these molecules to understand pain, nerve transmission, ion channels, and potential biomedical applications. What in nature serves to capture can, in the laboratory, open doors to valuable knowledge, new questions, and perhaps future sophisticated therapeutic approaches. This reinforces one of the great paradoxes of spiders. The same group that evokes fear also provides refined clues for research. Venom, silk, and perception are not just hunting tools. They are expressions of a lineage that has refined economy, precision, and adaptation to levels that we are still far from fully reproducing in our own technologies. In the universe of spiders, chemistry is no exaggeration. It is an evolutionary language. Some species have elevated it to a level that demands maximum caution from humans. But even in the most dangerous, the logic remains the same. Win quickly, spend little, and transform apparent bodily fragility into silent, precise, and deeply efficient dominance. In the world of spiders, reproduction does not begin with delicacy. It starts with risk. Approaching a mate can mean genetic continuity, but also immediate death. Therefore, courtship and mating have evolved as survival choreographies, in which every vibration, distance, pause, and decision must be read correctly, so that the approach does not end in a fatal mistake. In species with a strong size difference, such as many orb weavers, the male needs to communicate something essential before any contact. I am not prey. To do this, he moves slowly, pauses, and uses his own web as a means of signaling. Any mistake in rhythm, distance, or insistence can turn a cut into an attack. The web, which once served to capture, becomes an instrument of language. The male does not vibrate just any way. It produces rhythmic signatures that the female distinguishes from the desperation of a trapped insect. On this silk stage, communication and survival cease to be separate things. The thread transmits intention, species, caution, and opportunity at the same time. In males, the pedipalps take on a central reproductive role. Discrete structures in other circumstances become decisive instruments during sperm transfer. This shows how the spider's body has not been sculpted for a single function. Even seemingly small details can carry enormous evolutionary weight when the goal shifts from hunting to perpetuating the lineage. Few scenes in the group rival the dance of the peacock spiders. The male Maratus transforms its own body into a visual spectacle, displaying intense colors, lateral movements, and rapid vibrations. Here, conquest does not depend on strength. It depends on impressing without frightening, standing out without appearing threatening, and convincing before the female's patience runs out. This dance is not a mere decoration. It serves to communicate vigor, coordination, and correct identity. Each gesture needs to balance exuberance and caution. The male must appear attractive, not dangerous. In a space of just a few centimeters, sexual selection and the risk of death act side by side, forcing the body to transform performance into a biological argument. From the female's point of view, accepting a partner is never a simple decision. Producing eggs, protecting them, and going through the next phase requires energy, time, and exposure. The ritual serves precisely to filter quality. The male's body needs to convince before the proximity becomes too dangerous. In the world of spiders, attraction and evaluation go hand in hand all the time. Some species have gone even further and transformed courtship into bargaining. In Pizora mirabilis, the male can offer a nuptial gift, a prey wrapped in silk. It serves as food, distraction, and strategy all at once. While the female evaluates or consumes the offer, the risk of the encounter decreases and the reproductive chance increases. The gift is not kindness in the human sense. It is refined adaptation. By offering food, the male buys time, reduces the partner's aggressiveness, and increases the chance of completing reproduction. Once again, the group shows that survival and ingenuity go hand in hand on a tiny scale, where even courtship can depend on carefully organized feeding strategies. When mating finally occurs, it is almost always brief. The speed reduces exposure and minimizes the chance of lethal reaction. For the male, success is not just about fertilizing. It is about fertilizing and staying alive. In many species, leaving the encounter is as important as entering it, because survival can still open up new future opportunities. The quick withdrawal summarizes all the reproductive tension of spiders. Courtship begins under threat and often ends in flight. This does not make the process any less sophisticated. On the contrary, it reveals how much natural selection has refined behavior, timing, and caution in encounters that last briefly, but decide entire lineages over time. After mating, the biological investment primarily falls on the female. Producing an egg sac means converting protein, time, and raw materials into protection for the next generation. Silk once again takes on a central role, now not as a trap, but as a capsule of survival, isolation, and stability for bodies that have not yet begun to move. Each egg sac is a small biological fortress. It needs to maintain moisture, support dozens or hundreds of eggs, and block some external threats. The same body that once built capture webs now weaves a silent shelter for invisible lives. Once again, the spider shows that its engineering never serves a single purpose. In wolf spiders, motherhood takes on a different form and a literal weight. Instead of leaving the eggs in a protected spot, the female carries them with her. Every movement, escape, and hunt now also includes the future of her offspring. The mother moves more slowly, more exposed, and much more responsibly than before. This gesture changes everything. The territory ceases to be just a space for individual survival and becomes a path for 2 generations at the same time. Motherhood here is not an abstract state. It is a constant physical burden, distributed across every step, chosen shelter, prey pursued, and risk taken in the environment. When the pups emerge, the scene becomes one of the most extraordinary in the animal world. Dozens, sometimes hundreds of small bodies climb onto the mother and accumulate on her back. The swift predator transforms into a living platform of transport, protection, and persistence, carrying an entire future in motion. Carrying so many offspring alters escape, hunting, and environmental reading. Still, the mother continues. Every movement must balance personal safety and collective safety. Few images depict the intensity of parental investment among spiders, as well as this living back, advancing through a hostile world. Stone by stone, leaf by leaf, risk by risk. Not all carry the eggs. Many prefer to fix them in silk refuges and stay close. The strategy changes, but the logic remains. Reduce losses before birth. In groups marked by solitary hunting, the reproductive phase reveals a care much more present than popular imagination usually admits when thinking only of poison and webs. There is a brief moment when the puppies still live in the transition zone between shelter and autonomy. There, vulnerability is extreme. Humidity, temperature, predators, and the stability of the refuge can determine the success of an entire generation. Silk functions once again as a survival architecture, nursery, and shield at the same time. Although most spiders are solitary, some species have taken a different path. Stegodipus dumicola lives in communal webs, where many individuals share space, maintenance, and capture. It is a fascinating exception. The spider ceases to be just an isolated hunter and becomes part of a collective survival machine, with an almost social logic in full vegetation. Living in a group offers clear advantages. A larger web covers more area, intercepts larger prey, and distributes effort among many bodies. In return, it requires tolerance, coordination, and a certain balance between competition and collective benefit. Even among spiders, evolution has tested real forms of cooperation when it proved ecologically advantageous. From a distance, these colonies seem to transform the entire environment into a single architectural organism. Branches, leaves, and shrubs disappear beneath the silk. The result is strange and impressive. The spider here ceases to appear as an isolated unit and begins to act as part of a living, functional, predatory social structure. Then comes one of the great moments in the life of spiders: aerial dispersal. To leave their birthplace and reduce competition among siblings, many spiderlings climb to high points and release fine threads into the wind. Nature transforms silk into invisible wings without altering legs, wings, or any other typical flight traits. This behavior, known as ballooning, seems almost magical, but it is pure strategy. Dispersing through the air expands territory, reduces competition, and allows for the colonization of distant environments. Birth does not end in the shelter. It continues at the moment of departure, when a tiny body trusts the wind, the electricity of the air, and the physics of the planet. Mating ritual attempts, male escape, egg sacs, young on backs, cooperative colonies, and journeys through the sky. In this part, the spiders showed a less remembered but deeply powerful side. The ability to invest in the future with the same precision with which they dominate the present, transforming reproduction into a refined strategy of continuity. After observing the origin, hunting, venom, and reproduction, the question that changes everything remains. Why do spiders matter so much? The answer is not in a single species, but in a silent presence spread across almost every environment where life thrives, works, and struggles to remain in balance. Spiders are everywhere, but they almost never get credit for what they do. They occupy leaves, trunks, walls, flowers, grasses, and crevices. While we think of ecosystems remembering large animals, they sustain part of the stability on a small scale, controlling excesses, occupying niches, and influencing entire chains without drawing attention. Where there is an abundance of insects, there is also the risk of population explosions that can put pressure on plants, flowers, fruits, seeds, and other animals. Spiders fit exactly into this delicate point. They do not eliminate all life around them. They reduce excesses, filter abundances, and help prevent the small scale of chaos from turning into systemic imbalance. The ecological strength of spiders does not depend on a single method. Some intercept flying insects in the air. Others patrol the ground. Others occupy flowers, trunks, crevices, or water margins. This diversity of strategies distributes predatory pressure across various microenvironments simultaneously, transforming the group into a true living mesh of biological regulation. In agricultural areas, this role becomes even more evident. Spiders help to control insect populations that, without sufficient predators, could grow rapidly and increase pressure on crops. They do not solve all the challenges of the field on their own, but they participate in a constant, discrete, and valuable ecological defense that rarely appears in popular statistics. One of the great strengths of the group lies in this functional division. While one type hunts close to the ground, another dominates the height of the plants. While one works in daylight, another takes over at night. Together, the spiders create continuous predatory surveillance over different areas of the productive environment, reducing the chance of localized excesses becoming larger problems. In natural ecosystems, the logic is the same, just expanded in complexity. Spiders participate in biomass control on a small scale, but with enormous cumulative effects. What seems insignificant on a single leaf multiplies across fields, woods, marshes, gardens, and millions of micro-territories, creating an almost invisible and continuously active regulation. Therefore, when scientists estimate the colossal mass of prey consumed by spiders on the planet, the number is impressive. Not because a single spider is dominant, but because the entire group, when summed up, functions as an immense biological infrastructure for regulation. Almost invisible, almost silent, but crucial for preventing the small scale of life from getting out of control. In cities, the role of spiders continues, even in radically transformed scenarios. Gardens, backyards, vacant lots, rooftops, crevices, walls, and areas with artificial light become new niches. Even surrounded by concrete and noise, many species continue to act as efficient predators, adapting to the human landscape without abandoning their ecological function. A nightlight summarizes this adaptation well. The light attracts insects, the insects attract the spider, and the spider converts a change created by us into an immediate ecological opportunity. The scenario has changed, but the logic remains. Where there is a concentration of prey, there will be a great chance of a spider transforming excess into silent balance. But spiders are not just consumers, they are also consumed. This places them in a central position within food chains. They capture energy from smaller organisms and then transfer it to larger animals. They are both efficient predators and valuable food, which makes them an ecological link, never an isolated endpoint. The expression web of life, applied to spiders, takes on an almost literal weight. Their threads traverse physical space, but the group also crosses invisible relationships among prey, plants, microorganisms, predators, and the flow of energy. Removing spiders from a system would not only mean fewer webs, it would mean less containment, less connection, and more instability. In addition to ecology, spiders have also become fascinating to science because of silk. Strong, flexible, lightweight, and produced under extraordinary biological conditions, it has inspired decades of research. What serves the spider for hunting, shelter, reproduction, and movement has also become a model of advanced natural engineering for us. The relationship between nature and technology is profound. The fibers produced by spiders combine rare and difficult-to-reproduce properties. Strength, elasticity, and material efficiency appear together in an impressive way. Each thread cast between branches seems simple, but carries a molecular sophistication that science is still trying to understand, imitate, and convert into new technological pathways. The interest in spider silk is not just theoretical. There are studies investigating applications in biomaterials, lightweight structures, regenerative medicine, and special surfaces inspired by its composition. Even when we do not perfectly reproduce the material, it already serves as a reference. The spider continues to teach engineering to the world without ever needing to know it. Poison has also entered this territory of research. Molecules produced by certain species help scientists understand pain, nerve transmission, ionic channels, and cellular targets of great biomedical interest. The same group that evokes fear also offers knowledge. The same chemistry that captures can, under rigorous investigation, open new scientific and medical possibilities. It is no coincidence that spiders have entered so deeply into human imagination. In the tradition of Arachne, they are associated with weaving, challenge, perfection, and punishment. The ability to produce threads and structures with one's own body has always seemed too extraordinary to go unnoticed by myth, art, and the human need to explain fascination. In other cultures, the spider appears as a figure of cunning, strategy, and narrative intelligence. This reveals something profound about our relationship with the group. Even when fear speaks loudly, human observation recognizes in them another quality: the ability to win through the mind, through context, and through the indirect use of force, rather than relying on overt violence. Fascination and fear have walked together for centuries. Spiders suddenly appear, live hidden, display many eyes, and in some species, carry significant venom. This has been enough to fuel superstitions, exaggerations, and mental monsters. The functional creature of the ecosystem has often been replaced, in human imagination, by a threat much greater than reality allows. Repositioning spiders to their real biological size does not mean ignoring species that require caution. It means understanding proportion. Most of the group lives without any interest in confronting humans. They are too busy hunting small animals, avoiding larger predators, reproducing, and trying to survive in a world full of risks, far from our mental theater. Protecting spiders, most of the time, does not require isolated measures aimed solely at them. It requires protecting their habitat. Where there is living soil, complex vegetation, refuges, and diversity of microenvironments, there is space for the group to perform its role. Where everything is simplified, compacted, or removed, their ecological functions begin to fail silently. An overly simplified ecosystem supports fewer strategies, fewer niches, and less stability. Spiders sense this quickly. Without refuge, without suitable prey, without space for webs and movement, many disappear. And when they disappear, part of the biological regulation of the environment goes away with them, even if almost no one immediately notices the accumulated cost. Few lineages demonstrate adaptation with such clarity. Spiders have occupied deserts, wetlands, urban areas, cultivated fields, caves, and lake margins. They have learned to hide, wait, jump, run, weave, deceive, and regulate populations in radically different contexts. Their global success is a direct result of this extraordinary plasticity, and not of a single isolated advantage. Perhaps the best image to summarize everything is that of the spider in the center of the web. It does not dominate through excessive force. It dominates through fine-tuning. It senses, interprets, responds, and conserves. Its entire existence is built on precision, and that is precisely what explains its permanence over so many eras, while so many other solutions have disappeared. Small, resilient, ancient, and often misunderstood, spiders are among the invisible threads that hold the tapestry of life together. After traversing their evolution, their hunting, their chemistry, their motherhood, and their role in the world, one simple truth remains. Without them, the planet would be poorer, more unstable, and much more chaotic. If this documentary has changed the way you see nature, follow us, because here, every mystery of the planet gains voice, depth, and imagery like you've never seen before.